السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. My brothers and sisters, distinguished guests, it's very difficult to follow the acts of Naeem and Hamza and Mustafa and Layan. But let me start by really thanking Muslim Aid and my dear friend Mustafa Farouki and his team for organizing tonight's event. And yes, indeed, Hamza, I did choose this event because I needed to be among family and among friends, among brothers and sisters, to take inspiration from your journey here in this country, from your contribution, from your warmth, and from your outpouring emotions towards Palestine and towards humanity in general. Really, I want to take a moment to thank you for your work for Palestine, on Palestine, not only just in the last few months, but for the many, many years that you've been there when you were needed the most, Akhi Mustafa. In this holy and the holiest months of this holy month of Ramadan, we are all asked to think of those in need. That's the meaning, the real meaning of Ramadan. To think of those in need and to empathize from deep in our hearts, empathize with and relieve others' suffering. There is no greater need in the world today than that faced by our people in Palestine and Gaza especially. This is not because Palestine or the Palestinians are a poor people or there has been a natural disaster. This is because of a man-made catastrophe. Gaza is the worst man-made humanitarian disaster in living memory, given the short period of time. Israel has not only killed and destroyed with abandon in the past 6 months, you've heard the numbers. And by the way, the 32,000 killed, mostly women and children, is not really the accurate number. There are still thousands under rubble. There's still thousands missing. And if Israel stops its killing today, we're still going to lose, according to international estimates, 11,000 Palestinians. Not to mention those injured, more than 100,000 people now killed or maimed. And as you all know, Israel is using both starvation and disease as a weapon of war. In the 21st century, 27 Palestinians have died in the last few days as a result of starvation. 24 of them are children. And by the way, there is goodwill by you and many people in the world, and there is aid. We need more aid, and I agree with Hamza, we should not give up or be dissuaded. But there is aid piling in on the Egyptian border, enough for 6 months for Gaza. And children are dying of starvation. That is Israel's design, execution of a plan to turn an entire area, an entire population lifeless. To turn Gaza unlivable. 1.9 million people have been displaced from homes that is, in most cases, no longer exist. Israel has destroyed or damaged some 70% of Gaza's housing stock. And the world is unable to take its responsibility seriously. Some has used airdrops, in fact killing more people than saving people. The US is proposing a temporary pier on the Mediterranean, which will take 6 weeks, when people are literally dying of starvation as we speak. And Israel is preventing life-saving aid from reaching people in hunger stress, as even the UK's Foreign Secretary has come to realize, and you may have heard Lord Cameron only recently confirming that Israel is preventing aid from rebelling in. Israel has targeted Gaza's health sector, leaving 70,000 wounded people without access to proper care. Women are giving birth in shelters, and we're talking about thousands, without any medical treatment. 17,000 Palestinian children in Gaza have been orphaned or separated from any family members. An entire population is living in tent encampments at the mercy of the elements, the weather and what have you, and exposed in overcrowded and unsanitary conditions to infectious diseases for which there is a little to no medicine, no hospitals, no clinics around them. This is an Israel-made disaster. This is an Israel-made apocalyptic in every sense. And it is up to us collectively and our humanity to end it, because it is a stain on our humanity, on all of us. It is a stain on our collective conscience. And I must say, we must all ask ourselves, not just Palestinians, all of us, Muslims, non-Muslims, Christians, Jews, people from all faiths, backgrounds, this one question. What future are we leaving to our children? All of our children. Because make no mistake, this is not just about the Palestinian people. We are not only being targeted because we are Palestinians, by the way, nor we are fighting only our fight. This is about all of us. Because if Israel gets away with it, who's next? Whose children are next? Whose hospitals are next? Whose houses are next? But there are other struggles too. And we very much appreciate your generosity and charity, which is needed. It's very much needed. We're talking about famine, a man-made famine. I'm sure you followed the latest reports that the north of Gaza is at level 5, which is officially famine. So material support, aid is needed. But for most, there are other struggles, my friends, too, that we must pay attention to, that we must engage in this very month of Ramadan, very holy month of Ramadan. Foremost among them is to keep up your activism, your voices, your presence, your influence, your challenging the status quo. To keep up your engagement with the British public and the British decision makers. What happened in the last few months was depressing on the one hand, but inspiring on the other. There is a massive change in the public opinion in this country. From the first week, more than 70% of the British public called for ceasefire. That's because of your activism, because you talked to your neighbor, to your work colleague, because you were engaged on the social media. The kiddies of you were more engaged in the social media, and they created a revolution, an electronic revolution. All this matters. It matters. To keep up our engagement, and to keep up our engagement at all levels, not just public, but political and official. Make your voices heard, and to keep up the pressure on those who would deny what is happening before our very eyes. And there are people who are still, politicians who are still denying what is happening in front of our eyes. This is not a time to look away, my friends. It is not a time to feel fatigued or, to feel we are getting used to the images. And many people are getting used to the images of the genocide. Because Israel is banking on the idea of normalizing these images. And this is not a time to be intimidated into silence. I know many are trying to intimidate you, intimidate us, intimidate anybody who reveals the truth. We must demand accountability. We must raise our voices. We must demand moral clarity from everybody. Moral clarity. We should expect more from our shared humanity. And we must press our just cause against again and again to anyone who will listen, and to those who won't. Not just to anyone who wants to listen. Even those who don't want to listen, we must press our voices, because Israel is pressing ahead. Israel does not yet feel any pressure. It is engaged in a massive act of ethnic cleansing in Gaza and all over Palestine. Do not forget Jerusalem and the West Bank. Do not forget that all Palestinians, wherever they are targeted. It has been clear it wants to depopulate Palestine. Of course, Gaza is under the intense campaign. It has been clear it wants to leave Gaza unlivable. So my brothers and sisters, it's hard to look at images, footages coming out of Gaza. It's hard to bear witness to the appalling suffering that has been inflicted on the defenseless. It is hard to hear the words of children, far too young, of the pain they are enduring, like the words of 15 years old Ghazal, originally from Jabalia refugee camp in the north of Gaza, which has been all but leveled to the ground. This is what Ghazal wrote recently from a tent in Rafah. There is no need, she said, there is no need to be afraid. In the end, everyone will die and no one will remain. She goes on, Ghazal, everyone knows the truth and realizes that Israel killed children and women, destroyed homes, and committed the most horrific massacres, and no one stopped them. She was blaming the world. There is no value, she said, in what I am living. It is just a waste of time until I die. And here, the words of Sham, another girl, 8 years old. Sham wrote this. Do you know what the war made me feel? Sham asked. I am an 8-year-old girl and I feel like I am 18, she said. I pray every day and every night for this war to end. It made me realize, she says, how much I love my mother and my father and my sister Naya. I want them to stay with me and be safe. These are the words of a traumatized child. And it is trauma that has been imposed on our children. It is a trauma that is allowed by the inactions of states and governments like the UK and the US. And my friends, these countries, at least to start with, must immediately ban arms exports to a country that is committing genocide. The least we expect is that countries, governments like the UK and the US take their legal and moral responsibility seriously and ban the exportation of arms that end up in the bare bodies of our children. It is a trauma, my friends, that will take years, if not decades, to heal. And I believe the real healing can only come with peace, with justice, with dignity, and with accountability. So this is the message we must also press home. Yes, for a ceasefire, a massive humanitarian relief and reconstruction efforts, but also an enduring end to the injustice in Palestine. Enough is enough. The Palestinian people must be liberated, and we will go all the way to liberate our land and our people. We must have our own state, our freedom and our rights equal to all other nations, and our refugees have the right to return to their homes and properties. There must be no delay. This is the time for those who say, in the suitable moment, this is the moment. And the trauma will last, of course. The trauma will last. But liberation tomorrow will help the healing. And we are determined more than ever that we shall be free, that justice shall be served in Palestine. The Palestinian people will not back down. It's been 107 years. We will not back down. We will not give in. We will not be deterred. We will remain steadfast. Like Sham, the 8-year-old girl I quoted before, who also said in her letter, this war has made me realize how much I love my country and my home. It has also taught me to be strong, she said, patient, and to take responsibility. I hope we can all absorb the wisdom of an 8-year-old girl from Gaza in this 21st century, who is living through the worst man-made humanitarian disaster in living memory anywhere in the world. I hope we can all aspire to the same strength, patience, and sense of responsibility as this young child. I thank you for your solidarity, my friends, for your charity, for your efforts and voices. And I wish all of you a peaceful Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak.